The morning sun was just beginning to shine through the tall windows of the ABC television studio in New York City. It was October 15th, and the building was already buzzing with activity. People were rushing around with coffee cups in their hands, getting ready for another day of live television. Lisa Martinez walked into her office on the third floor. She was the main producer for The View, one of the most popular talk shows on television. Lisa had been working at ABC for 12 years, and she thought she had seen everything. But today was going to be different, even though she did not know it yet. Lisa sat down at her desk and opened her laptop. She looked at the list of guests who were coming on the show today. Robert De Niro was supposed to be the main guest. He was coming to talk about his new charity work and maybe his latest movie. Lisa smiled. De Niro was always good for ratings. People loved watching him, even when he got angry or said things that made headlines. The phone on Lisa's desk rang loudly. She picked it up quickly. "Hello, this is Lisa Martinez," she said. "Hi Lisa, this is Tony Blake. I work for Clint Eastwood," the voice on the other end said. Lisa almost dropped her coffee cup. Clint Eastwood was one of the biggest movie stars in the world. He was 94 years old but still making movies. And still famous. Lisa had tried to get him on The View many times, but he always said no. "Mr. Eastwood wants to come on your show today," Tony said. "He has something important he wants to say." Lisa's heart started beating faster. "Today? But we already have Robert De Niro coming on." "That's perfect," Tony said. "Mr. Eastwood knows about that. He specifically wants to be there when De Niro is on the show." Lisa felt confused. Why would Clint Eastwood want to be on the same show as Robert De Niro? Everyone in Hollywood knew that the two actors did not like each other very much. They had different opinions about politics and had said bad things about each other in newspapers and magazines. "Is everything okay?" Lisa asked. "Are they friends? Now?" Tony was quiet for a moment. "Let's just say Mr. Eastwood has something he needs to get off his chest. He'll be there in 2 hours." The phone line went dead. Lisa stared at the phone for a long time. She had no idea what was going to happen, but she knew it was going to be big. Meanwhile, across town, Robert De Niro was sitting in the back of a black car, riding to the ABC studio. He was wearing a nice dark suit and had his hair combed back. De Niro was 79 years old, but he still looked strong and tough. He had been acting in movies for more than 50 years, and people still loved watching him. De Niro was thinking about what he wanted to say on The View. He had been speaking out about politics a lot lately. Some people loved what he said, and other people hated it. But De Niro did not care. He believed in saying what he thought was right, even if it made people angry. The car pulled up in front of the ABC building. De Niro got out and walked inside. He was used to being on television shows, so he was not nervous. He smiled and waved at the people who recognized him in the lobby. Back at the studio, Lisa Martinez was having a meeting with the hosts of the View. Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Sonny Hostin, and Whoopi Goldberg were all sitting around a table, drinking coffee and going over their notes for the show. "So De Niro is coming on to talk about his charity work," Lisa said. "But we might have a surprise guest too." "Who?" asked Whoopi. She was the main host of the show and had been doing it for many years. "Clint Eastwood," Lisa said. All four women looked at each other with surprise. Joy Behar almost spit out her coffee. "Are you serious?" Sarah asked. "Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro on the same show? Do you know they hate each other?" "I know," Lisa said, "but Eastwood's people called this morning. He wants to be here when De Niro is on." "This could be really good television," Sonny said. "Or it could be a disaster." Whoopi shook her head. "I've been doing this show for a long time and I can smell trouble. These two men have been saying mean things about each other for years. If they get into a fight on live television, it's going to be our fault." In the makeup room, Carmen Rodriguez was getting her supplies ready. Carmen had been doing makeup for television for 20 years. She had worked with all kinds of famous people, from movie stars to politicians. She could always tell when someone was nervous or upset just by looking at their face. Carmen heard that Robert De Niro was coming in soon. She had done his makeup before and she liked him. He was always polite and never complained. but she also heard the rumors that Clint Eastwood might show up too. That made her nervous. Down the hall, Jake Coleman was running around with a clipboard in his hand. Jake was an assistant producer, which meant he did all the small jobs that nobody else wanted to do. Today, his job was to make sure everything went smoothly with the guests. Jake had just heard about Clint Eastwood, maybe coming to the show. He was excited and scared at the same time. Excited because it would be amazing television, and scared because his job was to keep everyone happy and calm. Pete Williams was in the control room, checking all the cameras and microphones. Pete was the stage manager, which meant he was in charge of what happened during the show. He had worked in television for 30 years and he had seen some crazy things. But he had never seen two big movie stars who did not like each other on the same show at the same time. In the green room, which was the place where guests waited before going on the show, everything was quiet. There were comfortable chairs, snacks, and bottles of water. Soon this room would be full of tension. Lisa Martinez looked at the clock on her office wall. It was almost time for the show to start. She took a deep breath and walked down to the studio. She had no idea what was going to happen in the next few hours, but she knew it was going to be something that people would talk about for a long time. The cameras were ready. The lights were bright. The audience was starting to fill up the seats. Everything was set for what might be the most dramatic episode of The View ever filmed. And somewhere in New York City, Clint Eastwood was getting ready to say something that would shock everyone. Robert De Niro walked into the makeup room 15 minutes before the show was supposed to start. He looked calm and relaxed, like he had done this 1,000 times before. Carmen Rodriguez smiled when she saw him. "Good morning, Mr. De Niro," she said. "Ready for another day on television?" "Always ready," De Niro said with a small smile. He sat down in the big chair in front of the mirror. Carmen started putting makeup on his face to make sure he would look good under the bright television. So. While Carmen worked, De Niro looked at himself in the mirror. He was thinking about what he wanted to say on the show today. He had been talking a lot about politics lately, and some people did not like it. But De Niro believed it was important to speak up about things that mattered to him. "You seem relaxed today," Carmen said as she brushed powder on his face. "I always feel good when I get to talk about my charity work," De Niro said. "It's important to help people who need it." What De Niro did not know was that across the building, Clint Eastwood had just walked through the front door. Eastwood was wearing his usual clothes, a simple shirt and pants. He did not dress fancy like some other movie stars. Even at 94 years old, he walked tall and strong. Tony Blake, Eastwood's helper, was walking next to him. "Are you sure you want to do this, Mr. Eastwood?" he asked. "I've been thinking about this for months," Eastwood said in his famous quiet voice. "It's time someone said something." In the control room, Pete Williams was checking all the cameras one more time. He wanted to make sure everything was perfect for the show. The View was watched by millions of people every day, and Pete did not want anything to go wrong. His phone buzzed. It was Lisa Martinez calling from her office. "Pete, we have a situation," Lisa said. "Clint Eastwood just arrived. He's really here." Pete felt his stomach drop. "What do you want me to do?" "Get ready for anything," Lisa said. "This could get crazy." Meanwhile, the hosts of The View were getting ready in their dressing rooms. Whoopi Goldberg was putting on her earrings when her assistant knocked on the door. "Whoopi, you need to know something," the assistant said. "Clint Eastwood is in the building." Whoopi stopped what she was doing. "Right now?" "Right now. And he wants to be on the show today." Whoopi shook her head. She had been hosting television shows for many years, and she knew when trouble was coming. "This is going to be interesting," she said to herself. In the green room, Robert De Niro was sitting on a comfortable couch, drinking water and reading over his notes. He was thinking about the children's hospital he wanted to talk about on the show. It was a project that was very important to him. Jake Coleman walked into the green room with his clipboard. He looked nervous. "Mr. De Niro, everything okay?" Jake asked. "Everything's fine," De Niro said. "When do we start?" "In about 5 minutes," Jake said. "But I need to tell you something. We might have another guest joining us today." De Niro looked up from his notes. Who? Jake took a deep breath. Clint Eastwood. For a moment, De Niro did not say anything. His face did not change, but Jake could see something in his eyes. Everyone in Hollywood knew that De Niro and Eastwood did not get along. They had different ideas about politics, and they had said some mean things about each other in newspapers. Is that so? De Niro finally said. His voice was calm, but Jake could tell he was not happy. He just arrived, Jake said. I thought you should know. De Niro nodded slowly. Thanks for telling me. At that exact moment, Clint Eastwood was walking down the hallway toward the green room. He knew De Niro was there, and he knew this was going to be uncomfortable. But Eastwood had something he needed to say, and he was not going to back down now. Lisa Martinez was following behind Eastwood, trying to figure out what to do. She had never been in a situation like this before. Two of the biggest movie stars in the world, who did not like each other, were about to be in the same room. Mr. Eastwood, Lisa said as they walked, are you sure you want to do this? Maybe we could schedule you for another day? Eastwood stopped walking and looked at her. I'm here now, and I have something to say. In the studio, the audience was starting to sit down. There were about 200 people in the audience, and they were all excited to see the view. They had no idea what was about to happen. Maria Santos was behind one of the cameras, getting ready to film the show. She had been working as a camera operator for 10 years, and she loved her job. Today felt different, though. Everyone seemed more nervous than usual. The stage manager, Pete Williams, was talking into his headset. 30 seconds until we start, he said to everyone in the studio. Back in the green room, the door opened. Clint Eastwood walked in, followed by Lisa Martinez and Tony Blake. Robert De Niro looked up and saw Eastwood standing there. For a moment, nobody said anything. The two famous actors just looked at each other. It had been years since they had been in the same room together. Hello, Bobby, Eastwood said. That was De Niro's nickname from when he was younger. Clint, De Niro said back. He did not stand up or smile. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Lisa Martinez felt like she could not breathe. Jake Coleman was holding his clipboard so tight his hands were shaking. I guess we're going to be on the show together today, Eastwood said. I guess we are, De Niro replied. Just then, Pete Williams' voice came over the loudspeaker in the green room. Places, everyone. The show is starting now. Whoopi Goldberg was already sitting at the table on the set with the other hosts. The cameras were rolling and the theme music was playing. The audience was clapping and cheering. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to The View, Whoopi said with a big smile. We have a very special show for you today. Our guest is the amazing Robert De Niro. The audience cheered loudly. They loved Robert De Niro and were excited to see him, but what the audience did not know was that behind the scenes, something very dramatic was about to happen. In just a few minutes, Clint Eastwood was going to walk onto that stage, and nobody knew what would happen next. The two movie legends were about to face each other on live television, in front of millions of people. And after today, nothing would ever be the same. The View was live on television, and millions of people across America were watching. Robert De Niro was sitting comfortably in the guest chair, talking to Whoopi Goldberg and the other hosts. He was smiling and seemed relaxed as he talked about his new charity work. So tell us about this children's hospital project, Sarah Haynes said. It sounds really wonderful. De Niro's face lit up. It's something I care about deeply. These kids need our help, and I want to do everything I can for them. The audience was listening carefully. They liked seeing this softer side of the tough movie star. De Niro had been in so many action movies where he played bad guys, but now he was talking about helping children. In the control room, Pete Williams was watching everything on the monitors. The show was going perfectly. The ratings were probably going to be very good today. But Pete kept thinking about Clint Eastwood waiting backstage. He had a bad feeling about what was going to happen. During the commercial break, Pete heard Lisa Martinez's voice in his earpiece. Pete, Eastwood is asking to go on stage now. What should I do? Pete looked at all the monitors showing the studio. I don't know, Lisa. This could be really bad. He says he's not leaving until he gets to talk, Lisa said. And he wants to talk. To De Niro specifically. Meanwhile, backstage, Clint Eastwood was standing near the stage entrance. He could see Robert De Niro sitting under the bright lights, talking and laughing with the hosts. Eastwood's face was serious. He had been thinking about this moment for months. Tony Blake was standing next to him. Mr. Eastwood, are you absolutely sure about this? Once you walk out there, there's no going back. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, Eastwood said. His voice was quiet but firm. The commercial break was almost over. In 10 seconds, The View would be back on live television. Pete Williams was counting down in everyone's earpieces. 5, 4, 3, 2. Just as the camera started rolling again, Clint Eastwood walked onto the stage. The audience gasped loudly. Nobody was expecting this. Some people started clapping because they recognized the famous actor, but others just sat there with their mouths open. Robert De Niro looked up and saw Eastwood walking toward him. His smile disappeared immediately. The two actors stared at each other for what felt like forever, but was really only a few seconds. Whoopi Goldberg tried to stay calm, but even she looked surprised. Well, this is unexpected, she said to the cameras. Ladies and gentlemen, Clint Eastwood has just joined us. Eastwood did not wait for anyone to ask him to sit down. He walked over to the empty chair across from De Niro and sat down. The two men were now facing each other on live television, with millions of people watching. Hello, Bobby, Eastwood said again, just like he had in the green room. Clint, De Niro said back. His voice sounded different now. It was harder, more careful. Joy Behar tried to make a joke to break the tension. Well, this is like Christmas morning. We get two great actors for the price of one. But nobody was laughing. The audience could feel that something serious was about to happen. Eastwood looked directly at De Niro. I came here today because I have something to say to you. Go ahead, De Niro said. Say it. Sonny Hostin tried to jump in. Maybe we should talk about your movies first, Mr. Eastwood. Your fans would love to hear about your latest project. No, Eastwood said, still looking at De Niro. This can't wait anymore. In the control room, Pete Williams was sweating. The phones were already starting to ring. This was live television, and there was no way to stop what was happening. Maria Santos, the camera operator, was trying to get good shots of both actors. She could see the tension in their faces. This was the kind of television that people would remember forever. Eastwood leaned forward in his chair. Bobby, for months now you've been going on television and saying things that divide this country. You use your fame to make people angry at each other. De Niro's eyes got narrow. I speak the truth. If people don't like it, that's their problem. That's exactly what I'm talking about, Eastwood said. His voice was getting louder. You think because you're a movie star, you can say whatever you want and it doesn't matter. But it does matter. The audience was completely quiet now. You could hear a pin drop in the studio. I've been making movies for over 50 years, Eastwood continued. I've seen this country change and I've seen Hollywood change. But I've never seen actors use their fame to tear people apart like this. De Niro stood up from his chair. Are you finished? No, I'm not finished, Eastwood said, also standing up. Even though he was 94 years old, he looked strong and angry. You want to talk politics? Fine. But stop pretending you speak for all of America. You live in a mansion and make millions of dollars. You don't know what regular people are going through. De Niro's face was getting red. And you do? You've been rich and famous just as long as I have. The difference is I don't go on television every week telling people how to think, Eastwood shot back. Whoopi Goldberg tried to get control of the situation. Gentlemen, maybe we should take a step back here. But both actors ignored her. They were focused only on each other now. You know what your problem is, Clint? De Niro said. You're stuck in the past. You can't accept that the world is changing. And your problem, Eastwood replied, is that you think yelling louder makes you right. You think being angry all the time makes you look smart. The two men were now standing very close to each other. Security guard Frank Lopez was watching, from the side of the stage, ready to step in if things got physical. In living rooms across America, people were calling their friends and family. "Are you watching The View? You won't believe what's happening." The ratings for the show were going through the roof. This was the kind of live television drama that people would talk about for years. "I care about this country," De Niro said. "Everything I say comes from the heart." "So does everything I say," Eastwood replied. "But I don't have to insult half the country to make my point." The confrontation was reaching its peak. Both men were angry, both were passionate, and neither was backing down. The whole studio felt like it might explode at any moment. And then, something completely unexpected happened. Just as the argument between Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro was getting more heated, something strange happened. Eastwood suddenly stopped talking. He stood there for a moment, looking at De Niro with a different expression on his face. The studio was completely quiet. Everyone was waiting to see what would happen next. The audience held their breath. Even the camera operators stopped moving. Eastwood took a deep breath and sat back down in his chair. His angry face softened, and he looked tired. For the first time since he walked onto the stage, he looked like a 94-year-old man. "You know what, Bobby?" Eastwood said quietly. "I didn't come here to fight with you." De Niro was still standing, his fists clenched at his sides. He was ready to keep arguing, but something in Eastwood's voice made him pause. "What?" De Niro said, confused. "I said I didn't come here to fight," Eastwood repeated. "I came here because I'm worried about something." Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward. She had been hosting television shows for many years, but she had never seen anything like this. "What are you worried about, Mr. Eastwood?" Eastwood looked around the studio, at all the cameras and lights, at the audience watching him. "I'm worried that we're all forgetting something important." De Niro slowly sat back down in his chair. He was still angry, but he was also curious about what Eastwood was going to say. "What are we forgetting?" Sarah Haynes asked. "We're forgetting that we're all on the same team," Eastwood said. "Bobby and we've both been making movies for over 50 years. We've both worked with the same directors, the same writers, the same crew members. We've both tried to tell stories that matter to people." De Niro was looking at Eastwood with surprise. This was not what he expected to hear. "I remember when you first started acting," Eastwood continued, looking directly at De Niro. "You were this young guy from New York, and you were so hungry to prove yourself. You worked with Martin Scorsese, and you made some of the best movies I've ever seen." The audience was listening carefully. They could see that something was changing between the two actors. "Taxi Driver," Eastwood said. "That movie changed everything. It showed people what acting could really be." De Niro's face softened a little. Taxi Driver was one of his most famous movies, and he was proud of it. "And Goodfellas," Eastwood continued. "And The Godfather Part 2. You were incredible in those movies. You made me want to be a better actor." In the control room, Pete Williams was amazed. Just 5 minutes ago, these two men looked like they were going to start throwing punches. Now Eastwood was giving De Niro compliments. "The point is," Eastwood said, "we both love movies. We both love telling stories. And we both love this country, even if we see it differently." De Niro was quiet for a long moment. He was thinking about what Eastwood had said. Finally, he spoke. "You're right about one thing," De Niro said. "We do both love movies. And I have always respected your work even when I didn't agree with your politics." "Same here," Eastwood said. "Raging Bull is one of the greatest movies ever made. The way you transformed yourself for that role. I still don't know how you did it." The audience was watching this conversation like it was a tennis match. Back and forth, back and forth. But now, instead of anger, there was something else in the air. Respect. Joy Behar decided to ask a question. "So what changed? A few minutes ago, you two were ready to fight. Now you're complimenting each other's movies." Eastwood smiled for the first time since he walked onto the stage. "I think we both remembered why we became actors in the first place." "Why's that?" Sonny Hostin asked. "To tell stories that bring People together, not tear them apart, Eastwood said. De Niro nodded slowly. When I was young, I wanted to be in movies because they made me feel something. They made me believe in things. They gave me hope. Exactly, Eastwood said. Movies are supposed to unite people. When someone watches a good movie, they forget about their problems for a while. They forget about politics and arguments and all, the things that divide us. Maria Santos, the camera operator, was getting incredible shots of both actors. She could see their faces changing as they talked. The anger was disappearing and something else was taking its place. I think, De Niro said slowly, maybe we've both forgotten that sometimes. Maybe we've been so busy being angry that we forgot about the good things we can do. The audience was completely captivated. This was better than any movie they had ever seen because it was real. I have an idea, Eastwood said. What if instead of arguing about politics, we talked about something we both care about? Like what? De Niro asked. Like helping people, Eastwood said. You came here today to talk about that children's hospital. That's something I can get behind. De Niro's eyes lit up. Really? Really, Eastwood said. I've been looking for a good charity to support. Maybe we could work together on something. Whoopi Goldberg was smiling now. Are you two serious? A few minutes ago you were ready to strangle each other. That's what happens when you get two old men together, Eastwood said with a laugh. We argue first and think later. De Niro actually smiled. Speak for yourself. I'm not that old. You're 79, Eastwood said. That's pretty old. You're 94, De Niro shot back. That's ancient. The whole studio started laughing. Even the camera crew was smiling. The tension that had filled the room just minutes ago was completely gone. You know what I realized? De Niro said. We've been acting like enemies, but we're not really enemies. We're just two guys who care about different things. That's right, Eastwood said. And there's nothing wrong with that. America is big, enough for both of us. In living rooms across the country, people were calling their friends again. But this time, instead of saying, "You won't believe this fight," they were saying, "You won't believe what just happened." The show was supposed to end in 5 minutes, but nobody wanted it to stop. This was television history in the making. So, what happens now? Sarah Haynes asked. Eastwood looked at De Niro. What do you say we grab a cup of coffee after this and talk about that children's hospital? De Niro smiled. I'd like that. And just like that, everything changed. The last few minutes of The View were like nothing anyone had ever seen on television before. Clint Eastwood and Robert De Niro were sitting next to each other, talking like old friends instead of enemies. The audience could not believe what they were watching. Before we end the show, Whoopi Goldberg said, I have to ask both of you something. What just happened here? How did you go from fighting to being friends in just a few minutes? Eastwood thought for a moment before answering. I think we both remembered something important. We remembered that we're more alike than we are different. De Niro nodded. When you spend your whole life making movies, you learn that every story has more than one side. Maybe we both forgot that for a while. The show was almost over, but nobody in the studio wanted it to end. The audience was on the edge of their seats watching two Hollywood legends make peace on live television. So what's next for you two? Joy Behar asked. Well, Eastwood said, looking at De Niro, I meant what I said about that children's hospital. I'd like to help. And I meant what I said about having coffee, De Niro replied. Maybe we can figure out how to work together on something good. Suddenly, Eastwood stood up and held out his hand to De Niro. What do you say we shake hands and show America that two people can disagree and still respect each other? De Niro looked at the hand for a moment. Then he stood up and took it. The two men shook hands firmly, and the audience exploded into applause. People were standing up and cheering like they were at a concert. Pete Williams, watching from the control room, had tears in his eyes. He had been working in television for 30 years, and he had never seen anything so powerful. Ladies and gentlemen, Whoopi said to the cameras, you just witnessed something very special. Thank you for watching The View. As the cameras stopped rolling, the audience kept clapping. They did not want to leave. Some people were crying. Others were taking pictures with their phones, even though they were not supposed to. Lisa Martinez walked onto the stage, still not believing what she had just seen. "That was incredible," she said to both actors. "It felt pretty good," Eastwood said. "I'm glad I came." "Me too," De Niro said. "Thanks for having me." As the two actors walked off the stage together, people in the studio were already talking about what they had witnessed. Carmen Rodriguez, the makeup artist, was telling everyone she met that she had just seen television history. Jake Coleman was running around with his clipboard, trying to handle all the phone calls that were coming in. Reporters from every major news station wanted to talk about what had happened. Within minutes of the show ending, videos of the confrontation and handshake were all over the internet. People were sharing the clips on every social media platform. The hashtags Clint Eastwood, Robert De Niro, and The View were trending worldwide. At CNN, news anchor Kelly Brooks was preparing a special report about the incident. "This is the kind of moment that reminds us why live television can be so powerful," she said to her viewers. Meanwhile, Eastwood and De Niro were in the green room, talking quietly. They were both drinking coffee and looking more relaxed than they had all day. "You buy?" "No," De Niro said. "I've been angry for so long I almost forgot what it felt like to not be angry." "I understand," Eastwood said. "When you care about something deeply, it's easy to let the anger take over. But anger doesn't solve anything," De Niro said. "It just makes everything worse." Tony Blake, Eastwood's assistant, came into the room. "Mr. Eastwood, every news station in the country wants to interview you about what just happened." "Tell them I said everything I needed to say on The View," Eastwood replied. "Actions speak louder than words." At that moment, De Niro's phone started ringing. It was his agent calling about all the interview requests he was getting. "I'm not doing any interviews either," De Niro said. "What happened today should speak for itself." The two actors exchanged phone numbers before they left the studio. They made plans to meet the next week to talk about the Children's Hospital project. As news of the encounter spread across the country, something interesting started happening. People who had been arguing about politics online began sharing the video of Eastwood and De Niro shaking hands. Instead of fighting, people started talking about how two famous people had found a way to respect each other despite their differences. Political leaders from both parties praised what had happened. On The View, the president tweeted about how the incident showed that Americans could disagree without being disagreeable. Even foreign newspapers wrote stories about the handshake that was seen around the world. But the real impact was felt in regular homes across America. Families who had stopped talking because of political arguments started calling each other. Friends who had unfriended each other on social media began reaching out to reconnect. A week later, Eastwood and De Niro met for coffee at a small cafe in New York City. They talked for 3 hours about the Children's Hospital and other ways they could help people together. "You know what's funny?" De Niro said as they were leaving the cafe. "What's that?" Eastwood asked. "I think we would have been friends a long time ago if we had just taken the time to really talk to each other." "Better late than never," Eastwood said with a smile. 3 months later, they announced a new charity foundation together. The Eastwood-De Niro Foundation would help build hospitals and schools for children in need. Their first project was the Children's Hospital that De Niro had talked about on The View. The foundation raised $10 million in its first month. Other celebrities started joining the project, inspired by how two former enemies had become partners in helping others. A year later, The View invited both actors back for the anniversary of their famous encounter. This time they came on the show together as friends. "What did you learn from what happened that day?" Whoopi asked them. "I learned that it's never too late to change," De Niro said. "And I learned that sometimes the best conversations happen when you least expect them," Eastwood added. The incident became known as the handshake that changed everything. It was studied in schools as an example of how people could resolve their differences. It was written about in books and made into documentaries. But most importantly, it reminded everyone that no matter how different people might seem, there is always common ground to be found if you look hard enough. And it all started with two old actors who decided to stop fighting and start listening.